Two Geeks, 2 beers and a laptop. Episode 9, Knightmare.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, welcome to episode 9 of Two Geeks, 2 beers and a laptop with me, Tom, and Morgan.
Hello, dear listeners.
You've been pretty geeky since our last show that we recorded.
Yeah, it's been a little while since we've recorded an episode, but I have been just sort of spending the whole time topping up my geek cred. What have I been doing? I met Paul McGann. I interviewed Paul McGann, one of my favourite doctors.
He's very nice.
He was absolutely an absolute legend. Yeah, that was brilliant. I was also at San Diego Comic-Con. Which is like geek mecca, so you can't get much more.
I've still not been to any sort of convention like that, so I'm terrified the day I will.
We've been talking about the possibility of taking Two Geeks to a convention at some point and renting out a little stall maybe and spreading the word about our product.
Interviewing our fellow geeks, and stars, and who knows.
So Two Geeks Live might happen at some point.
Yeah. Well, this time I'll be taking Morgan all the way through Knightmare, the children's game show. Because you don't seem to remember much about it, or you do, but you don't.
No, the classic thing is, what do you know about Knightmare? And in this case, it's absolutely nothing, pretty much.
So very surprising for me, because it couldn't be more up your street, this. As a kids' TV show as well, in your era.
Well, for me, it always had that kind of... that association of sort of being a bit like Dungeons and Dragons or something, which I know is technically, that's geek, honey or whatever, but like
it's a different kind of geek.
It's not something that particularly has appealed to me. It seemed like a live action role playing game, and as much as I'm geek number one, role playing and D&D and rolling dice, that side of things has never really appealed to me. So maybe that's why. All I know about it is it's a kids game show. From sort of the maybe 80s or 90s, and I think there might be someone in it called the Gatekeeper, although I might be confusing it with Ghostbusters, so I'm not entirely sure.
Similar. Well, while it probably would have helped if you were a D&D fan, I'm sure they would have loved it.
Yeah.
You didn't have to be that kind of nerd.
Right.
Any kid could play it. Okay. You just needed a bit of brain here and there. But it's not your ordinary game show. It ran from 1987 to 1994, which is longer than I thought. And basically it's all about you're in a group of 4 kids, and one is the lucky bastard who gets to play the sightless dungeoneer.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant that was what, like
the lucky bastard.
Yeah, the term they were given. You are the lucky bastard this week.
That's
a bit much.
I feel like it is a bit Game of Thronesy at times, and that's a word that's used quite often in that. But the other 3 guide them through the puzzles and scary moments, and they meet characters along the way.
A bit like Crystal Maze.
Yes, exactly. Right. And we'll go on to this later, but I would have assumed I would have loved to have been the main guy, the sightless dungeoneer.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking, maybe not, which we'll go on to later.
Alright, intriguing, okay.
Which we'll decide which one you'd want to be.
Alright.
So the show was like one of the first uses of virtual reality of some kind, even though the guy who's got the helmet on isn't really seeing anything. It's just in darkness. So it's not really virtual reality for him, but it's sort of virtual reality for the others looking at the green screen.
All right, immediately I'm thinking it'd be better to be one of them.
Yeah.
And not this guy who's basically just walking around a room with a helmet on his head and can't see anything.
So, because you could either be the guy on the helmet who's the main guy, who's doing all the work, but he's not doing anything, he's just been told what to do.
Right.
So if you've got a dumb friend, make it him.
Just stick a helmet on his head and guide him around a dark room.
Just hope he knows the difference between left and right.
Right.
Because that's very important.
Yeah.
But I remember watching this as a kid and just being truly amazed by the worlds it created. So I kind of must have known that it was all make-believe, obviously, because the effects were obviously not real life.
Yeah.
But I still somehow thought it was real in terms of them moving around and touching things, and I felt like they were in an equivalent sort of room.
So was the studio all computer generated?
Well, yeah, so it was all like they do with the weather. It's all a big room of blue or green screen. So if they just showed what it was really like,
right.
So I think that's I think they said the main reason they gave them the helmet. They said it was to protect them from seeing the real danger ahead.
Of course.
When really it's just they don't want
so
to see
it's like
the green screen ruin it.
It's like a really shit version of the holodeck.
Yeah,
Star Trek.
Exactly.
Right.
But yeah, I thought it was just strangely magical, and I believed it. Yeah. If I was ever playing it, I would love to have known how it worked.
Yeah. But... So you were under the impression that they were actually kind of interacting with this 3D environment,
exactly,
when actually only the viewers were really seeing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But we'll start. I'll play the theme tune now. Have you seen the theme tune before?
I have no idea what the theme tune is. No.
Well, it's this epic kind of animation, and it feels like something out of classic 80s, like Dragon's Lair sort of thing,
right.
Don Bluth sort of animation.
Oh yeah.
But kick-ass 80s air guitar theme tune as you would expect. So here we go.
Amazing, like a sort of dark and moody Prince Valiant or something. That looked great.
I mean, obviously not quite as epic.
Yeah.
It's quite more sedate when it got into it.
Yeah.
But that gives you an example of what it's like. So, the kids, they'll enter Knightmare Castle and they'll meet Treguard of Dunshelm, who's the gatekeeper guy that you're thinking of.
The dungeon master.
Yeah. Played brilliantly by Hugo Myatt. And the dungeoneer is given a knapsack to put in food along the way to replenish their life force, which we'll go on to later. And he's given the Helmet of Justice.
The Stone of Shame.
Yeah. Which essentially just makes them blind, so they don't ruin the magic. I'll play you a clip now of a typical beginning of an episode, so you have an idea of what's his name's like.
I, of course, will be with you, and yet not with you. Use logic and guile to find the right path. But remember, the only way is onward. There is no turning back. Well, Martin, your life force is green, and your cause is just. So face the dungeon door and step boldly forward.
Where am I? You're in a hallway with 5 stars in front of you, and on your right-hand side there's a lever.
Yes. Step forward, Martin. Stop.
Attention, team, this is the Wheel of Fate. It could also be the Wheel of Fortune if you're quick enough. Martin has but seconds to ensure his progress by halting the wheel at the chamber of his choice.
Turn right, Martin.
Use the lever directly by your right hand, Martin.
Forward.
And hurry.
Step forward, quick.
Or you'll be trapped here.
Now, there's a lever in front of you. Can you push it downwards? No. To your right.
Sideways.
Sideways, to your right. There.
Yeah.
Now turn left slightly.
Where am I? You're in a room with 4 doors, 2 in front of you and 2 on your left and right hand side.
That's amazing. Right? I'm much more edging towards being one of the guys that gets to say, turn to your left, mate. There's a dungeon right in front of you. I'd much rather be him than be this guy who's literally just walking.
Wetty Martin.
I don't want to be Wetty Martin, who's just walking with a big sort of, what would you call it, Viking helmet on, but he can't see anything.
Dunce helmet.
He doesn't really get to experience much of anything.
Exactly.
Like, you could replicate that in your home.
But I love it. The kids on every single episode take it very seriously.
Yeah.
As you would.
Yeah. Well, that guy, Hugo Myatt, he seems to be taking it very seriously. That clip there was sort of like something like out of like early Doctor Who or the Tomorrow People or something. It's kind of got quite a strong fiction element to it.
That's the thing. He's very good because the apart from maybe the intro and the outro, I don't know how much of it's scripted. A lot of it seems sort of ad-libbed at the time, and he just seems to know everything about everything. And I would be intrigued to see how much he was given.
I knew I recognised his name, and I was like, has he been in Doctor Who at some point? And I swear this is not me doing this on purpose, but he was in a number of Big Finish audio productions. I swear I'm not getting paid. I'm not getting paid by Big Finish, but he was in a few Doctor Who audio dramas, and also a Sapphire and Steel audio drama that Big Finish made.
There you go. But yeah, so it's kind of like text-based computer games, the way it's played. So they just say, step left, crouch, pick up key, cast spell. And the basic episode is 3 levels. The object is to collect items, meet characters, and get out alive after finding some kind of treasure. Yeah. And you'll meet like jesters and wizards and maids and stuff. So yeah, Game of Thrones, but more fun. I mentioned the life force earlier. This is where it gets a bit strangely dark. You've got the on the screen all the time, there's this like little avatar image of the dungeoneer. It's got like a clock and a progress meter, and it tracks his or her energy level. And if they take too long on a task, because they're just rubbish, or they take damage from whatever, or they just make bad decisions, it just keeps going down, down, and down, down, down to they're about to die. But if you get food, you can increase it.
Right. What happens if they die?
Well, this is the thing. Once the life force is done, the helmet image on the screen sort of disappears. Then pieces of the skin fell off the avatar's face. Then a skull. Then the skull would crumble. The eyes get rolled back, and then a death knell tolls.
A bit much.
So I'll show you a clip of a particular death in Knightmare. What it looks like.
Warning, team, nothing here is stable. Proceed with care, but don't delay. Simon.
Yes.
Side step to your left. That's what we call the block and tackle. You were never very good at maneuvering, were you? Well, I think I better maneuver for you. Spellcasting. T-I-S-M-I-S-S. Farewell, Andrew, Richard, Simon, and Andrew. Your journey promised much, but you were riding for a fall. The path behind you leads west and hence to Wales. So, goodbye. So much for Welsh wizardry, Master. By the way, what is rugby? Well, it's a game, Pickle. And for now, our game's the only thing. And a new player enters the arena.
But you know when he said it helps if you know your left from your right?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, who doesn't know their left from their right? Clearly that guy, he just got screwed over by his mates who, in case it didn't translate to audio, they basically just manoeuvred him down into like a massive hole in the ground.
A centimetre to his left, there was a big hole. And so they were like, sidestep to your left, Simon.
And he fell down the trapdoor.
Yeah. So most of the deaths were due to a combination of stuff. And I think one team in Series 2, I read this, they just ran out of life because they were stuck in a room and couldn't find a way out. So the timer just went down. They were like,
that's dark. It's depressing. I like this. I found this on Wikipedia. It says Mary Whitehouse, classic Mary Whitehouse, was initially critical of how dark Knightmare was, i.e. the simulated deaths of the dungeoneers, after having been given a macabre description of Knightmare by the press. However, she apologised after she later saw the show and basically realised that it was fine.
Just get over it.
Oh, actually, I haven't seen it. Sorry. Yeah, no, it's actually fine.
So, I found another really good death, which I want to play just because of how just great the reaction of Hugo Myatt is, and how bummed the team are when it ends.
Oh no. This can only be the entrance to the dreaded Corridor of Blades. What Daniel needs is a sight potion or a seeing eye spell, but you've got neither. All you've got is a red key that you don't seem to need. Well, I suppose it's possible. He'll just have to try.
Okay, Daniel.
Yes?
We're going to go into the Corridor of Blades. You're going to have to bear with us, okay?
Yes.
Sidestep to your left. Once. Okay, walk forward. Okay, Daniel, left. Right, get over, quick. Right. Left, duck. Left, right.
Ooh, nasty.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's a very special breed of young man, clearly, who would appear as a contestant on Knightmare. Yeah. But also, like, were they only canvassing in like a certain area of northern England? Because every single one's like, move to your left, mate. Right, go right.
But I think it's like a precursor to the World of Warcraft sort of nerds, where they're taking it very seriously, and they get like so stressed if it goes left. But it's pretty hard to win. The only prize at the end was like a silver spurs of squiredom or medallions or whatever, and only 8 teams ever won.
Out of how many?
Well, like 8 series. So
how many episodes?
Let's have a look at how many episodes there are. It's got to be a lot more.
112 episodes.
Yeah,
so it's 112. 8 out of 112 teams. I mean,
think of that.
You'd be like, when you get to sort of what's half of that? When you get to sort of like 56 and like only like 2 teams won, maybe
we should make it a little bit
easier for the kids that are playing.
Yeah. And the last episode in each series was apparently impossible because it normally ended with the dungeon just collapsing to end the series.
Right. No, you said impossible. This has put me on a little segue. I think we've talked about this before, but it was a kids' game show that employed CGI called Virtually Impossible. And it was on CITV.
I do remember the name. I can't remember anything about it.
It was basically the same sort of thing. It was like a game show where kids, have to take on challenges and tasks. But the reason I remember its USP was that it was hosted by a CGI fish, and I have no idea why. But it was cool, and he would go, "Welcome to Virtually Impossible," because he was underwater, obviously. Hang on, Virtually. I think it was like on again CITV, which also did Knightmare. They don't get stuff like this anymore.
And they just seem to make it so much more difficult back then. I'm sure nowadays they would never try and make it this like...
Right, it's not on Wikipedia, which is not a good start.
Really?
For how well known this show is or is not. Virtually Impossible. A computer fish named Codsby is the guide in this virtual reality game show made circa 1994 by the same people who brought us the classic Knightmare.
There you go.
That's a better segue than I thought it was.
Okay.
Good, I'm glad I didn't just make it up.
So they tried to do not a spin-off, but like a separate sort of... What kind of games was it?
I don't even remember, to be honest. I'm just glad I didn't make it up in my head, because that would have been a weird thing for me to have invented. But yeah, they swapped out Hugo Myatt for a big talking computer-generated fish.
As you would.
As you do.
Calling all gameheads, console cowboys, joystick jockeys, and keyboard kings. We need you if we're going to stop the bad guys from taking over the fun factory. So get down here and get logged on. Your mission's not just tough, it's virtually impossible.
But every now and then, as you say, they did win, and it's like when someone wins Deal or No Deal. It's a big deal. I think if we were doing it now, it'd be like front page news.
You get a press release. It'd be like someone won Knightmare.
Yeah. So here's an example of what it's like to actually win a bloody episode of Knightmare.
Okay, Dickon, stop. You're in a large room with two windows.
Quickly, this chamber is haunted.
Over to your right, there's a statue, and I think it's wearing a crown.
Can you go over to... Can you walk forward, please?
Walk forward towards the statue.
Stop, side statue right.
Keep going.
Can you see the statue?
Yes.
Has it got a crown on it?
Yes.
Pick up the crown.
Pick up the crown.
He's done it, Master Dickon has the crown!
Yes, he has, hasn't he? Then there's only one thing for it. Merlin!
And Michael will have to shout. I've arrived. Well, what is it now?
Merlin.
Oh, my goodness. I see you have a winner for us. Well, goodness gracious me. Nothing like this has happened since, let me see, 1988. I've almost forgotten what to do next. I have forgotten what to do next. Oh, no, I haven't. Spellcasting! U-N-I-T-E. There. Dickon. I'll take that if you don't mind. These are for you. They are not valuables, you understand, merely mementos. But what you have achieved is worth far more than any treasure.
Well, I got so many questions about that. First of all, why did they ask him if he could see the crown when he's got that helmet on his head? They know the premise of the game. Second of all, why did Merlin show up? Third of all, that kid went on Knightmare. Was he not getting a hard enough time at school, given that his name was Dickon? I'm just throwing that out there.
They sound like they were going, "Oi, dickhead!
Dickhead, turn left." Late night, Knightmare, late night, coming soon.
All these out of work actors who are obviously really good theatrical actors.
I guess it beats doing like medieval banquet. In London.
Yeah, Renaissance fairs and all that. Yeah. So let's talk a bit about Treguard and his friends. So he was a Saxon knight, and he was on his own until Series 4 when Pickle the Elf, played by David Lerner, who was also Marvin the Paranoid Android.
In Hitchhikers, the TV show.
So he played Pickle the Elf.
Oh, lambs to the slaughter, Master. I mean, big enough, I grant you, and strong enough.
Pickle, I do wish you wouldn't discuss our guests as if they hadn't yet arrived. Pardon. Your name, please.
Ben Waite.
Welcome, Ben. Ignore the elf. He takes these defeats personally, you understand.
And then he had a few other characters. He had Majida, an Arabian princess and genie. But she originally claimed that her name was Daughter of the Setting Moon, whose eyes are like daggers in the hearts of men who ride the great caravan of the Sultan.
Right, but they shortened that to Majida, because it's quicker and easier to roll us off the tongue.
Well, if you're quite certain...
Of course I am quite certain. Enter, stranger!
A fresh start with a fresh face, so let's have a fresh name to go with it.
Alex.
Alex.
Yeah.
Now you need 3 friends, perhaps, for eyes and ears.
Thank you, miss. And I'll also thank you to remember that certain duties in this saga are the prerequisites of a dungeon master.
What is this prerequisite?
Something you haven't earned yet. Forgive her, Alex. This is Majida, my new accomplice. She's from eastern parts, we gather, and not over-familiar with our ways yet.
And Treguard's catchphrase became, ooh, nasty. So pretty much every death was followed by that.
Yeah, little camp flourish from him.
But it was hugely popular. I know that TV ratings now are totally different ball game to what it was there. But it got 4 to 5 million viewers per episode. For a children's TV show at any time, that's massive, right? Yeah. And sadly, despite the fact that it was always popular, CITV, apparently they were concerned about like the average age of the audience. It was getting a bit younger and they wanted... You think that's a good thing though, right?
What that CITV's audience was getting younger?
Yeah. Surely that's good.
But maybe it's like, you know, the Knightmare attracted a slightly older audience, as I imagine it probably would, given the fact that we're pushing 30 and fascinated by it, whereas, you know, little kids maybe weren't getting into it.
But after its 8th series, it was kind of rested. Creator Tim Child he wanted it to remain cutting edge, and he wasn't quite ready what he wanted to do. Like the effects and everything wasn't quite there yet.
I mean, 8 series isn't bad.
I know. But it came back in 2004. It was like a 13-minute internet pilot called Knightmare VR, and it used sort of avatar technology and 3D stuff, and Hugo Myatt was back.
Nice.
But it was all like computer generated, and they got rid of the helmet of justice.
Well, that's key.
And because they wore this like the VR helmet thing, but they could see everything.
It's not as much fun,
and
it's
not as much fun.
No.
And so in the end, it was all axed and everything. But 2013 came back as a one-off special.
I remember this.
On YouTube's Geek Week with Tim Child and Hugo Myatt. They were back with Izzy Sutty and Jesse Cave. But it was the 4 contestants were YouTubers, just irks, and 2 of them were the ones from Radio 1. I can't remember what they're called, Dan and whatever. It shows how old we are. We're don't know what YouTubers are.
YouTubers.
But I felt like they were watching a little bit back. I mean, they seemed to enjoy it, but they all seemed clearly too young to kind of remember it at the time.
Well, the average age of a YouTuber is about 12.
Exactly.
So
I don't think they would have known what it was. It would have been better to either have actual kids now, or like us who loved it at the time.
Or bring back people who played it at the time.
Or that, exactly.
And they get a second chance.
Well... That's put a new twist on things, I must say.
And who the hobgoblins are you?
I am called by Veruca.
Really? Parents can be so cruel. Well, I shall call you Daisy.
But I'm not a cow.
No, with a name like yours, you can't be too choosy either. And who are these persons?
I'm not sure, but I think they're here for a quest.
A quest, eh? Goodness, we haven't had one of those since the Age of the Dragons. Well, let's not disappoint them.
Then they also did a theatrical version at the Fringe that year, and it got really good reviews.
When you said theatrical version, my brain went to like cinema. You know, like a theatrical release. Nightmare the movie. Starring Hugo Myatt.
It got good reviews. And then last year they had a big convention which was created via crowdfunding. And you were able to like play a version of the game. You met the cast and crew, and it was like a big event. So it's all very popular still.
Yeah,
there's still demand out there for it. Would you play it now? So if you were playing it now, would you rather be the dungeoneer or his mates?
Well, like I said, you could pretty much replicate being the little lucky bastard who gets to go in because he literally just got you just blindfold yourself and your mates just go, "Oi, walk into that wall there, chum." Like that doesn't really work. I'd much rather be one of the guys because it's essentially a game show crossed with a video game, right? The experience of playing a video game. And the fun of playing a video game is playing it. There's nothing more boring than watching someone else play a video game. So you'd want to be the guy who's in control. His mates are the ones in control, and they get to hang out with Hugo Myatt and stuff. Who's that guy? Just in some room somewhere in front of a blue screen, but you can't even see the blue screen. I'd definitely be one of the players.
But do you think it would work now?
I think you could. I don't know
what kids like now.
I don't know. But do you know what? If you just take the format, I think you could make something like that work. I think there's a real lack of fun kids game shows, that are a little bit spooky and a little bit fun. That's fine, and you could update it with contemporary effects and all that sort of thing. Where would it go? That's the trouble now, because not only is Knightmare not on, CITV doesn't exist anymore. Like, it doesn't exist. There's like, I'm just gonna go on a little rant, but like kids TV has just been like ridiculously diminished in this country.
It's not actually on the main channels, is it? It's on.
There's no CBBC. There's no CITV. There's a CBBC channel. But. I mean, and like budgets for kids' TV are basically non-existent. Not to get too boring, but there was like a tax break a couple of years ago to do with something to do with kids' TV, and people hoped it might give it a boost. But I just don't know where something like Knightmare would go. The obvious answer, I guess, would be online. And maybe something like this could work online. But
the other way it could go, they could do what they've done with Countdown and do like an adult comedy version. Because that's the way it would. Because if you think about it, the audience of Knightmare, who love it, are our age or older. And so do like a 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock version on Channel 4 with Jimmy Carr.
Well, this is the thing. As long as it's not Jimmy Carr going, oh, nasty.
Bring back Hugo Myatt.
Bring back Myatt and Izzy Sooty, who's like, geeky but kind of cool and got a bit of cred. It's not just like, oh, here's Josh Widdicombe playing Knightmare. Oh, no, I'm not up for that.
But I wouldn't be surprised if it happened, let's put it that way. But there were other kids' game shows and other just game shows in general which are sort of similar. Do you remember Raven?
Raven was, I think, like a little bit after my time. It was a little later.
CBBC.
I remember it looking quite good.
Trying to. Well, I suppose it was a good 8 years after.
It was.
Finished, so they were allowed to try it. 2002, 2010. So it was 10 series in all apparently. But I was looking it up and I was going to discuss it, but it's just too complicated. My brain just really hurt. It sounds even more like Game of Thrones. If you want to know more about Raven, look up on Wikipedia. There's so much stuff on there.
What was the basic premise?
Again, it was like groups of 5 or 6 kids in some sort of adventure game, but it was more technical, I think, much more adventurous, not relying on too much virtual reality and stuff like that. But obviously the same kind of audience that they were trying to replicate from Knightmare.
This, warriors, is Tree Rock. A place both sheer and deep. You must traverse this rock and grasp at least one gold ring you will find along the way. But one slip will take you into these murky waters and cost you a precious life, as would awakening the dormant demon who will claim you in an instant. There are a further 3 gold rings suspended from the mighty tree, and there is only one way to claim these, and that is to take flight. Sarjed, as our leader, you will face this challenge first.
And then obviously you had the adventure game in the 80s, you had Gamer's Master, sort of similar in its own way. Crystal Maze.
Of course,
Fort Boyard.
Fort Boyard. Do you remember this thing which I've always linked it in my brain with Knightmare, possibly because I've just found out it's called Knightmare in some countries. Atmosphere.
No.
Which was, but fear is spelled F-E-A-R, Atmosphere. And Atmosphere wasn't a TV show. It was, I've always linked them together in my brain. And it's like, turns out it originated from Australia. And it was like a board game, but with a VHS component.
Nice.
And it was like a horror game. And so you would play it, and then you would put in a VHS, and it would time each round. And there was someone called, I think again he was called like the Gatekeeper or something. Are you the Gatekeeper? And he would guide you through. Yeah, I found like a little clip of that.
Awesome.
Look at this.
So, you want to play the game? My game, by my rules. I am the Gatekeeper. I rule this game, and you will obey my rules.
But me and my brother and my cousins used to play that.
Yeah.
And we would turn off all the lights in our cousin's living room and put the tape on. And it actually used to shit me up a little bit. It used to scare me because it would go quiet and then that music, and then that terrifying face would come up.
Kids love being scared, don't they?
We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Kids love being scared, you know. We love scaring kids. No. Kids love, fun scares. Nothing that's horrifying or scar children, but stuff like Doctor Who and that, they love to be a little bit shook up. It's just fun, isn't it?
Do you remember the Incredible Games?
No. What even is that?
It was I think it was CBBC, it might be CITV, but it was a kids' game show, and it had David Walliams, who played The Lift, character.
Oh, I remember you've shown me a
I
clip
think
of
I've
this
shown you this
before.
before. But it wasn't really like Knightmare, but there was one game in it called The Dark Knight.
Right.
Before The Dark Knight was a thing.
But nothing to do with Batman.
Yeah. And it was like a board game type thing where it was like 3 of you and you were in different bits of the board and there was a big Darth Vader at the other end.
Yeah.
And he would go, move. Then you had to move, you had to decide, do I want to go left, right, forward? You can't go back, you have to go forward or left and right. And then he would go, but he can't see you. So you're trying to like get to the other end without him. But when he got to you, he just killed you.
Terrifying.
Mary
Whitehouse would be right on the Incredible Games. Yeah.
What you must do is make your way from one side of this giant chessboard to the other without the Dark Knight getting his evil hands on you. Right. There's 20 credits for each one of you that gets across, so get out there now! Go on! Go, go, go! They're heading for those 3 green exits on the far side of the grid. So, Harry, Kate, John, are you ready?
Yeah.
Then let's begin. The Dark Knight there, ordering them to make their first.
Yeah. In the first series, the lift was played by David Walliams.
Yeah.
Bizarre. It was on BBC One, 1994 to 1995.
So there only one series then, probably?
I think, 2 series of 24 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So, what's your general feeling on Nightmare now? Would you?
Well, it's a weird one because normally we say, would you go back and watch it? And it's not the sort of thing.
Can't get on DVD box.
I'm not going to watch that on Netflix. But it does. I'm definitely intrigued to look into it some more. I do feel like it's a gaping hole in my knowledge that needs to be filled.
It's a very much loved series.
Yeah.
If you speak to anyone who's seen it.
Yeah. Well, my brother was always a big fan. I think possibly because he was more into the sort of role playing and the D&D and that kind of thing than I was. So
that's about it. Remember, you can download or subscribe to our series on iTunes. You can download them all from our website, 2geeks2beers.wordpress.com. And we're also now on Facebook and Twitter. It's both of those are 2 Geeks Cast. Now slowly uploading all the videos, all the podcasts we've done on YouTube as videos with clips from. It's much more of a sort of not interactive.
It's an audio-visual experience, Tom.
That's it.
It's Terrorhawks and Thundercats are up there already.
Yeah.
By the time this comes out, possibly we'll have some more up there.
So make sure you subscribe on that as well. And next time,
episode 10, bit of a landmark.
Yeah.
I'm taking the reins again, and we'll be talking about Superman, but more specifically, a little favourite of mine, which it gets a lot of flack, and it's not fair. And I'm basically doing in defence of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, the 90s series, the much loved by me.
I love it.
90s series. We'll be digging into that next time.
Cool. So we'll see you then. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Once more, you can stop gloating and ask yourselves, if it were me, how in the underworld would I get out of this one?